He has 9 tour-level victories, $3.2 million in winnings. This week, we go all the way out to the West Coast, and Brent Ehrler joins me on...
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Welcome one, welcome all, friends, family, freeloaders, fishing freaks, and of course my humpers. Happy hump day to all of you, and welcome in to the Awkwardly Honest Fishing Podcast that goes by my last name, which is Mercer. This is the 188th edition of the Mercer Podcast, and I hope wherever you are in the world, life is treating you well. This is going to be a fun show, a great guest. But before we talk about this week's show, let's talk about last week's show. Another great guest, but amazing interaction. I mean, the community that this show has built, I am so thankful for you guys. It's such a fun, positive community. And I don't know if you've realized this, but if you look around the internet, not everything's so positive nowadays. But 2 weeks ago, we did the Avco Breakwater Glove promo. 500 people commented, which I was like, wow, that is amazing. And it makes a big difference for our show because the more comments, the more you stroke the algorithm, the more you continue to help this show grow and do more things. So we did it again last week, 650 comments last time I checked. So it just continues to grow, and I thank you for that. With that in mind, the winner from last week's contest is at Greg Shelton 4487. Once again, at Greg Shelton 4487. We'll be in touch with you to send you a pair of those amazing Avco Breakwater gloves. And I know what all of you were thinking that aren't Greg Shelton 4487. I never won again. Well, guess what? Good news for you. The contest just got way bigger. The fine folk from Avco seen what we're doing, and they're like, hey, it's Reaper season. Let's have a Reaper contest. And they have this Reaper Mega Pack. For those who don't know what a Reaper is, it's started as the most comfortable, most incredible sweater there is out there. I mean, it's got a gator built in. It is the most popular sweater in the outdoors. It is also probably the most knocked off sweater in the outdoors. A lot of companies have come out with a rip-off Reaper, but this is the original, and nothing compares to the original. And they're going to do a Reaper prize pack because there's a Reaper jacket. There's all sorts of Reaper stuff. So it's going to be a little tougher to win this time. What you got to do is you got to click on the link that I will post down below in comments and in description. Click on the link there and enter. I mean, I think you just got to put your name and your email, something like that, to enter. A few more hoops to jump through, but trust me, this prize pack is worth it. And unofficially, I'm going to tell you right now, you still got to like this video and leave a comment that says Avco Reaper. Because I just don't want the comments to fall off. I don't want to find out that our community is a sham and you're only just commenting because you want to win stuff. And even if you are only commenting because you want to win stuff, we'll just keep doing that because it helps the show. Once again, Avco Reaper Mega Pack. The link will be down below. Make sure to like this video. Make sure to leave a comment that says Avco Reaper, and we will have a winner of a mega pack next week. But this week, we have a mega guest, a guy who's never, ever been on here before, a West Coast legend. He's one of those dudes who I've never, ever actually heard anybody say a bad word about, which is rare in a competitive environment, but he's just a good dude, a great dude. And this podcast goes a lot of different directions. We talk about fishing. We talk about UFOs. We talk about Sasquatches. We talk about, well, we talk about everything really. And I hope you enjoy it because he's just a good dude. And it's hard for me to believe that I haven't done a show with him up to this point, but I can guarantee you after you watch this probably won't be the last episode I do with him. Without further ado, let's travel all the way out to the West Coast and do a show with the one and only Brent Ehrler. Brent Ehrler, how is life in sunny California?
It is sunny. If you see back there. Very, very sunny, great. The weather's awesome out here. You know, in the wintertime and the summertime it's miserable, but It's nice right now. I mean, I was out jogging this morning in shorts and a t-shirt. So, it's not like that everywhere in the country or by you, obviously. So, life is good right now, buddy.
It definitely is not. But you say it's miserable in the summer. Like, do you live in the part of California that gets real hot?
So I live about 45 minutes from Palm Springs. So when it gets real bad, like this year, we had a couple days that were 116 at my door, which is really bad. It's normally not that hot, but standard issue summertime is about 105, which it just beats you down because it's 100 degrees from May until September, October. It's miserable. So it gets old. It definitely gets old.
Yeah. My feelings have changed. I used to think years ago, I was like, if I lived down south, not California, but like if I lived in Alabama or something like that, I'd be like, because in the winter here, everybody just shuts down and doesn't do as much. I mean, they ski and stuff like that, but I would think I'd be so much more active. And now that I've spent as much time in the South as I have, I realize they have winter. It's just called summer. I mean, they do not, they just shut down and do nothing, but I didn't realize that California got that hot. Everybody in Orange County tells me like it's 82 degrees and it's always just perfect.
Orange County is an exception. You're right by the coast and never gets that hot. And we actually lived in Newport for a little over 2 years, and it was great. It's mild in the winter, and it's mild in the summer. It's kind of like that year round, easy going, whereas out here you get great winters, it's awesome out here, but the summers are just brutal. So, it's the grass is greener at certain times of the year for sure.
You ever think about
we have the problem with doing that is we have a great support structure here. My wife and I were both born and raised right here where we're currently living right now, and my in-laws live a quarter, half mile away. My brother's a quarter, half mile away. My dad, my mom, everyone's really close. So when I say bye, I'll see you in 2 weeks. I can't transport them somewhere where we don't know anybody and then say, hey, I'll see you in 10 days. So it's great to have that structure here where they can go and, my wife and son go and hang out with her parents, or my brother comes and picks up Ollie and they go and, watch movies or play video games or do something. So, we have a great support structure here, and, that would make it tough. But having said that, we would love to move. We just don't know exactly where to move yet. So we're looking. Yeah. But really? I think it'll probably be Northern Cal, or best case scenario when Ollie gets out of school, we would probably do 2 places, one in Northern California and one maybe in Montana, or somewhere where we can get a break from California.
Yeah. I'm not going to get a break from driving though. Or traveling anyways. You're still
that's always there.
I agree with your theory though. That's what I tell everybody about me moving. Home is home, and there's times for work you just like, man, it would be so much easier if I lived closer to this. But you're dragging your family away from everything they're familiar with, and everybody that is home.
And there's something comforting about, being gone for, 1-2 weeks, a month, to go back to some place that you call home. It is kind of nice, and the amount of travel that you do and I do and on the road, it's nice to get back to something that's familiar for sure.
Yeah, it's great. Do you think that helps you focus a little more because when you show up to tournaments, I mean, your family travels with you sometimes, but it's definitely a work trip. You're there and you're there to work until you're done. And once you're done, you're gone back. Do you think that helps you focus a little bit better to do your job?
And it's funny you said that, because I definitely noticed that. You can focus really on just what needs to be done. And for me, focusing is everything. It's meal prepping. It's doing exactly what needs to be done that week without anything else. And it's easy to put all that focus into just that week. And it definitely helps to have that where you can kind of, I guess, compartmentalize, what you're doing. When you get home, you have a lot of different things you're doing. Oh, shoot, I need to go clean the garage. Or, you know what, we've got this broken. I'm going to fix that now. Oh, shoot, I need to jump in and do some tackle, but I have this to do. Back there, it's just jump into that boat, do this, wake up early, fish, and get the task done. So it absolutely helps to kind of be far away and focus on the task at hand.
When did this dream of being a bass pro start for you?
So I started fishing the FLW Tour in 2005. At that time, let me back up. I graduated college in 2000, and the first thing I did is I put on my nail bags and went out and worked for a framing company building track domes. My father-in-law is a general contractor, and so I go, well, this is great. I'm going to become a general contractor, and I'll be able to work around a fishing schedule. So I started the FLW Tour in 2005 as a hobby, and then 2006 I ended up winning the Forest Wood Cup. And so right then and there, that was when I go, this might end up being something a little bit more. I mean, obviously we all dream about doing something like that. In the fishing community, that's something that we all want to do. We want to be involved in tournament bass fishing somehow. And, being a bass fisherman, that's kind of what you look for. But I never actually thought it was going to be a living. And what was interesting is that 06, 07, 08, the fishing side of things started to take off. And the construction side, that was kind of that downside in the housing market. It was a perfect transition for me. The fishing took off where the construction stopped. So I always told myself that construction was going to save me in fishing, and it was the complete opposite. It was fishing that kind of saved me in the construction side. So really, I've been doing it full time since about 07, and I'm still kind of shocked that this is what I do for a living. It's different now. I mean, as you know too, when you do it for a long time, things kind of change. First get involved, you're just winging it. You're just excited for the moment, and you're just hoping that you can do more with it. But then all of a sudden it becomes a full-time job, and pretty soon you're like, man, this is different now. So, it's different. It absolutely is.
Don't take this as an insult, but I had no idea. Like, I just don't see you swinging a hammer. Like, when you said you went to college, I'm like, oh, yeah, for accounting or something. Like, I just don't.
So, I didn't go to college for
being a manual labor guy.
Believe me. So I was cleaning I've got a tackle room, and I was cleaning it during COVID, and I see this envelope, and I go, what is this thing? I open it up. Yeah, it was my college degree. I never even opened the envelope. So I graduated in 2000, and in 2020, I opened up the envelope that had my degree in it. So I got a marketing degree in college, but have never used it. Now, granted, yes, it can help you in the fishing side of things, but dude, I don't remember anything from accounting class or, I wish college is, look, it's a great program to give you a task where you have to finish something and to do it well, even if you don't enjoy it. But there are zero real life, classes, hey, by the way, let's show you how to do your taxes and pay your taxes so you don't get fined or go to jail. That would be a good class. Let's do something like that. Or by the way, let's have a class about what really happens out there in the real world, instead of, hey, if this train leaves and it's traveling at X speed and it stops here and the other train doesn't stop there, which one gets there faster or whatever. I took some of these, advanced algebra classes or whatever. I've never used any of that stuff. So I just go cast a lure.
Will you tell Ollie that?
Absolutely not.
See, I'm a bad dad. I told my kids that. I was just like, if you want to go to school, and they both go to college, and it's cool. And my wife is the one who fought, like, especially my daughter, who's an artist. And I was like, hey, if you want to be an artist, or she literally loves taxidermy and wants to do that. And I'm like, I know the guys from Advanced Taxidermy. You don't need to go to school. But my wife actually was the one who was like, no, she should go to college because that'll broaden her art. It'll force her to do things. And yet again, I was wrong. And Sarah was right.
Seriously, college is great. You do learn a lot. I just wish there was more real world practical. There was not. It was book work. It was never, hey, the real world happens like this, or maybe it's designed like that. Maybe you get the fundamentals behind it and you get out and you have to kind of struggle and learn. The more you struggle, the more you learn. So I don't know, but I do feel it is very valuable. It's just a different than actual real world. So yeah.
Yeah.
Ollie is definitely going to college. That's one thing that we're really pushing.
Were you a good student, like high school and everything? Did you enjoy school, or was it always just we need to get out of this?
I struggled in school until I would say my junior year in college. It's kind of interesting. We know each other through fishing, and fishing honestly saved me in my classes in college. And the reason why I say that is that I didn't have a drive or a direction. And when I was in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I took business because it was very broad. In college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. My grades were terrible when my first 2 years of college. Miserable bad. And I fished my very first tournament in a club tournament. I joined this bass club called the Point Seekers. It's a small club out here close to where I was going to college. And I had so much fun, fishing this tournament. It was funny because the very first tournament I finished second and got big fish in the tournament. I go, man, this is easy. This fishing stuff is so easy. A month later, I go to the next tournament and I finished dead last. So it kind of gave me that good intro into bass fishing. But it gave me that drive that I instantly started studying more. And now I had a purpose. I had something that I really wanted to do. And it really did help everything else, around me. So I got, I would say, pretty close to a 4.0 my second 2 years. But, my first 2 years, I was terrible. I was down around a 2 grade average, which is not good. And I want to say 1 or 2 quarters, I was sub 2. So I was doing terrible. And, fishing and tournament fishing specifically kind of really gave me that drive and purpose. And that's what you really need to have. It helps you in everything, even if it's the complete, far ends of any spectrum. If you're excelling in one thing or you have that drive in one, it really does help you in the others.
Yeah, you just need that reason, that reason to do all, like, you're not just going through the motions. You need a reason, something to chase.
Exactly. So, it definitely helped me to get better grades there towards the end. And I did graduate and then, got my degree in a folder and left it in my tackle room for 20 years.
When did, growing up, was fishing always a thing for you? Like, when did you have a moment in your life where you're like, this isn't just a casual thing. I need to do this.
It was still right there, second year in college when I started fishing, that it was an option for me. I loved fishing as a kid. There's no doubt about it. But for a long time, it was just, whatever pulled the bobber under. I just love fishing. And I was an active kid. I'm pretty sure I have some sort of attention deficit disorder in there somewhere. And, I couldn't sit still. I was running, doing everything. But for some reason, fishing was that one thing that I could truly focus on. And I loved it. And, I had a lot of things that I loved as a kid, like everyone. You played sports or, snow skiing or motorcycle riding, whatever it was that I did growing up. I always kind of came back to that fishing side, and I always enjoyed it. And I ride my bike down to the pond to fish. My mom would drop me off. Now, get this. It's funny. I look at Ollie, who's 13 right now. I would not drive him to the park that I used to fish at and let him fish for, 6-8 hours at a time. My mom would drop me off. This was before I was in kindergarten. So I'm 5-6 years old. She would drop me off for 4 or 5 hours at a time. and come back and pick me up. And I'd walk out with my little folding chair and a bucket and a tackle box. And I'd walk out there and I would set everything up and I'd throw my bobber out there and try and catch catfish. And I did that for 6 hours when I was, 6 years old. Ollie, dude,
with no cell phone, no way to track
Ollie
you.
off at the Ford Park over here when he was 6, half the place would be on fire, and we would get a call 80 miles away saying, "Hey, come pick up your child." That's Ollie, or something else would happen. Times are different now, so I always loved it, but I never actually thought that it was something I was going to do for a living, and I didn't even know anything about the tournament side until I was probably in high school. I went on a guide trip with. Do you remember Rich Tauber? So
yeah, of course. West Coast legend.
Rich, for my birthday, my dad took me to a seminar. Rich was there. Jimmy Houston was there. Don Iovino was there, and that was the coolest thing to see these guys that were pro fishermen. And I went to this seminar, and at that point, that was basically the first time that I knew anything about tournament bass fishing. So, but again, that was not something that I thought that I was going to do until I joined this bass club in Riverside, when I was in college. And I think I was maybe 20. I don't think I was old enough to, legally go and buy a beer at the store. So I think I was 20 years old when I started fishing with these guys. And that was when I really enjoyed bass, the tournament side.
Yeah. It's wild. I always think that's the weird thing that connects all of us, that people will say, "Oh, he's one of us," but you hear those terms, but I just feel like to hear you explain that seminar. I remember going to seminars when I was a kid, and there was a bunch of other kids watching, but I'm looking at these guys like, wow, they are
so crazy,
stars.
Huh?
But you realize quickly that you're a weirdo. I mean, at that time you did. In high school, I had a picture of Hank Parker with the Bassmaster Classic trophy in my locker. And I remember people making fun of it and thinking, they don't get it. But then we all meet each other later in life and realize, there's other weirdos like us.
How surreal is it when you go to a seminar like that and you meet Hank Parker, you're this kid, and later down the road, you see him and give him a big hug, and you're talking to this guy that you grew up watching and idolizing like that. Isn't that weird, right? I mean, it's so strange. It's so strange.
It's very weird.
That same seminar that I went to, Jimmy Houston was there, and I remember I raised my hand. Here's this 13-year-old kid raising his hand, and I still remember I asked Jimmy. I go, "Jimmy, do you like a trailer or no trailer on your spinnerbait?" That was my question that I asked. This is 30 some years ago, and now I see Jimmy at shows and go give him a big hug, and good to see him. He can't see me because he's got dark glasses on all the time, but it's so cool to see that and know that you've kind of went from that kid asking a question at a seminar to now seeing him at shows and competing against him in tournaments. I competed against Jimmy for years on the FLW tour. So what's really neat is getting to know and meet these people that you idolized and still idolize today. It's really fun to see these guys. And like I said, Hank Parker is one of those guys that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. He came out and did a seminar at Anglers Marine in Anaheim. That's my local ranger dealer out here. And they always had this thing called the Bassathon. And it was in the fall, and they always had seminars. They had, these guys come out, these pro fishermen come out and do seminars. And I remember that it was one of the very first ones that I went and worked for Anglers Marine. I was still in college, so this was probably 98-ish or so, 99-ish. And Hank was there. And I remember he got up on stage, and it was packed. There had to have been, close to 1,000 people in this. It was actually they cleared out their service department, where they do all the services on the boats and motors, and that's where they put a stage and had the seminars in there. And he gets up there, and first thing he says is, "I'm not even going to try and tell you how to fish out here because it's completely different. than where I fish. And he just went into telling stories after stories. I mean, the entire place was laughing, crying. I mean, it was great. And when I saw that seminar back then, I was an instant fan of Hank Parker's, and still am today, obviously. So.
Do you think about the 13-year-old version of you when you do seminars and stuff like that?
I don't. I mean, a little bit. When you see that one kid that's younger in the crowd, I do. It is rare. It's probably more commonplace today than it was back when you and I were kids. Now you'll see quite a few kids in there, whereas when you and I were there, we were the only ones in the room. And if we weren't the only ones there, the only reason why there's someone else was there is because they couldn't find a babysitter and the kid had to go, not because he wanted to go. So now it is more common to see kids. We have high school fishing now, college fishing. So there's definitely that younger crowd getting out there. But it is different. I haven't really thought about that. In fact, I'm doing seminars here in a week at English Marine. And when I see that kid out there, I'm going to think of that now that you brought that up.
It's weird because it's always been something that I've thought about. And it's, life is normal. Like everybody has life. You know what I mean? We have a cool job. We're very lucky to be able to do something that we dreamed of doing. But I think it's like any job. Like it's easy to I've been in seminar rooms where, most trade shows you go to do a seminar, there's like a room where all the pros get to put all their gear and stuff. And I remember sitting there when I first got opportunities like that, and there'd be these older pros that would come in and they'd just be like, a little grumpy, and I remember thinking like, dude, we get to do this. Like we get to, so I've always tried to remember that, and it gets, and there's times it's easy to forget, but it's like every year when I do the classic, like I weirdly take time to stop and look at everybody. Cause I'm like, there's going to be a time when I'm not allowed on that stage. You know what I mean? I don't get to do this anymore.
So when did you start working for Bass and doing the classic and on the water, or on stage? And when was that? What year was that?
2010, I think, 2011, 15 years ago, basically.
You want to know?
You
want to know something before that? I remember the first time and I met. It was at a TTBC.
Really? Hopefully this is good.
TTBC at Lake Fork. Or no, it might have been in Conroe. It might have been in Conroe at the time. You were not working for Bass yet. It was shortly after that you were hired at Bass. But I remember I obviously knew who you were and was a huge fan, but I had never met you before. And literally I met you walking on the stage with a microphone, and you say, Brent, blah, 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 how was your day? And the microphone like that was the first time I met you.
Wow. I remember meeting at CTBC. I mean, you had some good TTBCs.
I had one good one, yeah, for sure.
Jason Christy does not agree at all. What you did there was heartless.
What was funny?
It was horrible.
So to everyone out there that don't know, Jason Christy was leading the tournament. I made the cut to fish the final day, and I don't remember what place I was going into the final day. But I was down there. I was maybe 4th or 6th going into the final day. And we had the top 10 meeting. And Jason, was crushing it. I mean, he was catching big fish, huge, big stringer every single day. And I go, you know what, Christy? I go, I'm sick of this. I go, I'm going to catch, 10-pounder and win that truck from you tomorrow. I said that to him the night before, had no idea. I go out the next day. Guess what? I catch almost 11-pounder, have a 30-pound bag, and win the tournament and the truck. I said that to him just saying, because we all knew that he was going to win, and we all knew that he had big fish and was going to win the truck too. I was joking, and I had no idea that was going to happen the next day. So I went out, had one of those days that, you all dream of happening. And, the final day, I mean, I think big fish was almost 11 pounds. And, I didn't really think about it until later. I go, I said something to Jason, and I probably should not have said that, but it was one of those things where it was, I wasn't saying, I'm not a trash talker. I was joking. You know, it was just one of those things. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
spread the love, man. You can't get both here. Let me catch a big fish and win a truck at least. That was the way I meant it. I wasn't, you know, I had no idea. So I still feel bad to this day about that.
Do you really feel bad though?
Hey,
I mean, I know you got to say you feel
you know,
bad, but
I honestly do. You know, I have been on both sides of that many times. I have been on the losing side way more than the winning side. So I get it. But you know, yes, you still feel bad. Obviously, it is what we strive for, and it's what we are trying to do. So it is something that I wanted to do, and I was trying to do. That's our goal. But when you do it to someone, something like, you know, when that happens that way, yeah, you feel bad, but you also feel good. So
you willed it into existence. You were the original. What is it? The secret or whatever?
oh,
Willing
geez.
things into it. You just basically threw it out
Oh
there, and
man,
it
well,
happened for
I
you.
was joking, so I don't know if it was the right way to go about doing it, but you know, it happened, and you know, I still remember that day. I mean, we always remember stuff like that, but that was kind of a crazy thing, especially saying that to Christy the night before. That was kind of a weird deal.
Very, very. I think I remember. I forget how it unraveled, but I remember, you know, because it was catch, weigh, and release, and you guys kind of knew, you know, but coming off the water, you would know what everyone had, type thing. I don't think it was you guys. Oh no, you guys actually heard about what, because there was actually, that's when they had the radios in the boats, and you would hear, you know, so and so just caught
Yes.
a whatever, you know, a 6.2 or whatever. And I remember Christy, I think Christy had turned his radio off, which you could. And I remember Christy came in and somebody had kind of leaked to him that, yeah, you're not going to win this. And then I forget how it unfolded, but somebody was, and then he was like, well, at least there's a truck. And they're like, yeah, no, not that either.
Well, I think that I want to say on the final day for those events, they shut everything off at noon. Yeah. So you
Frozen,
don't, you know,
yeah.
it's not like Major League Fishing right now where you know by the second what's happening all the way to the end. I'm pretty sure in those they shut everything off at noon, even to the, you know, the fans watching too. That so it was a surprise. So the weigh-in actually meant something. When you went up on the stage, everyone was
Yeah.
surprised. You know, you don't know exactly what's going to happen. And I didn't either at the time. You know, I knew I had a good day, but I still didn't think it was gonna. You know, I had enough to beat Jason in that. So
It was a
yes,
cool event. I really look back at that. I mean, thank God for that event. For me, like without that event, I definitely don't have the
yeah,
job that I have now. But you look at that event, like it's funny. David Walker posted a picture of it
I
the
saw
other
that.
day. One of the
Well, it was
ones
a
he
team
won,
event.
and
Yeah,
when it was a team
yeah,
event, the first 2 years, it was a 4-man team. And that's how
yeah.
I started there. Like I didn't start as the MC there. Like my buddy Lenny from Octagon, who was running it with Gulf State Soda, called me up and said, "Hey, we're doing this big event. It's going to be on CBS and everything." And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, holy, they lied to me. That your phone will just ring one day and you'll get this opportunity. And he said, so we need an MC for this event. And then like, I'm just about to, he's like, but don't worry, it's not you.
Don't worry, it's not you. Gee, thanks.
So I was like, ah, and then he said we think you'd be great at like running around, because they'd had strategy sessions where the two teammates would meet
Yeah,
each other, the other two, before they switched, and there was 15 minutes for them to interact with each other and tell each other how they're
yeah.
catching them and that sort of thing. So I would run around with a microphone and interview people in the middle of these strategy sessions and do a bunch. Like I was the crowd guy. And then he said, well, who do you think we should hire as an MC? And then that's why they hired Fishburne, because I was a big
Yeah.
Fishburne fan growing up. And I was like, we need to hire Fishburne. And then one thing led to another. I ended up MCing it. And thank God that opportunity happened, because without it, there's definitely none of the stuff that I get to do
No,
now.
it's cool to see. It's cool to see you up there on stage still, and you know, I had some good times fishing with you guys at Bass, and you up there on stage, and there were some fun years there, getting to meet you and hanging with Zona and everybody. I had an absolute blast. Those were probably the most fun years I had. Absolutely. So yeah,
Had a lot of fun. But you still got a
yeah.
lot of fun ahead of
I
you. Don't
know.
start talking like, I mean, you're not quitting
No,
anytime soon,
no,
are you?
I don't believe so. What's
You're
that?
getting younger. You're
I'm
getting
trying.
younger. Like you're actually, everybody's aging you and you're recessing.
I'm trying. I'm working hard at it. That's the one thing that maybe will help me be more competitive. I don't know. It's fishing is interesting. You don't necessarily have to eat right and be healthy and still be competitive, but I think it helps me out. I'm devoting a lot of time and energy to, like you said, try to be younger. And that's about all I can do is, work as hard as I possibly can to be more competitive, and then, hopefully the fishing will take care of itself after that.
What was your goal when you started? When you first started this job, but when you first said, "Hey, I'm fishing for a living," what was the goal in your
Originally,
head?
it was just to cash a check so that I could, move forward. I distinctly remember the very first check that I cashed in the FLW tour, and that was the ultimate goal. Winning was not a goal. It was cash a check and qualify for the championship. And year one in 2005, I cashed 2 or 3 checks, but did not qualify for the Forest Wood Cup. And then year two, I qualified for the Forest Cup, which was 2006. And I had was never, I want to win the Forest Wood Cup. It was, I want to make it to the Forest Wood Cup. There was never a time where I thought that winning was a possibility. And, ended up winning that tournament. And that was a complete shock to me. So, my goals at that point changed. I'd won the Forest Wood Cup. So now winning was something that was an actual goal. But when I first started, it wasn't. It was just be consistent, cash checks, make the championship. That was my goal. And, it took winning to actually say, oh, this is actually something that's possible. So maybe that should be a goal too. So, but I mean, I just, I was winging it, at the time. I didn't really think I was going to do it for a living. It was just, it was one of those kind of exciting and new kind of things. It wasn't something that, now it's different. The jitters are different now. The excitement level is different now than it was back then. And, there's more at stake now. There's more responsibility now. My goals are still the same now. I go out, trying to cash checks, trying to qualify for championships. If you do that enough, then, eventually you're going to win a tournament. So I haven't won a tournament in a while, which sucks. And that is something that I would like to do. I have had some close calls, but man, our goals are still the same. We still want to win tournaments. So, I'd like to win one soon for sure.
How can you say the stakes are higher when back then, I mean, literally the stakes were like, I get to do this another year or not? I mean, you've accomplished enough that I would feel the stakes aren't quite as high, but maybe that says more about you because you feel the pressure of all your partners and everything that.
Absolutely. Yeah. You always want to be valuable to a sponsor, and you never want to have that day where the sponsor calls you and tells you that you're not valuable anymore. It's like being in high school and your girlfriend breaks up with you, so it's the same kind of a feeling. You're giving it your all, and they go, well, it's not good enough. We're going to find somebody else. So it doesn't feel good. So, the stakes are higher, but I
No.
also have more responsibility. I'm married and have a son, and this is my sole income. So, you have to go out and perform, and, you have to be valuable. You have to have that girlfriend still like you,
Well, I mean, this sounds bad, but you've had a lot of girlfriends and they all seem to like you. That is not No, yeah, I mean you've made a big impact in this sport. I think, like being from the West Coast. Do you feel is that not a pressure, but is that a like? Do the West Coast guys? I mean, I feel the Canadian guys feel like there's a bit of a kinship between them. You know, they hate they all want to destroy each other. Don't get me wrong. Just like, and I would imagine, the guys from Alabama, like they're from the same part of the world. They do. Is that intensified being from California? Because let's be honest, it's getting more rare to have West
It
Coast
is. It is
pros.
getting tougher, and I think that at this point there might only be 2 or 3 of us from California that are doing it now. So yeah, it's not. I would say normalized as much as it is in, say, the South and Alabama, but I don't know. I don't really look at it as I'm from California and things are different. I'm just trying to go out and compete. But maybe it's because I've been doing it for 20 years now, whereas before it was, there's more to it being this new kid from California, and it was different then. But now it's been it's been commonplace for me, for that long that I don't really think about that anymore. So I don't know.
One thing I think you're synonymous with, though, is Chucks. When did your relationship? When did your love affair with Chucks start?
I've always worn, Converse, Chuck Taylors like that, and I think that for a long time I didn't really wear them fishing. I wore, what everyone else wears, an athletic shoe, somewhat, but then. Every time I come home, the second I walk out the door, I had a pair of Chuck Taylors on. So I'm like, man, I'm going to start fishing in these too. And, now it's like my section of shoes is like all Converse. And then I have like a pair of Sims rain boots there. And then I have a pair of like, I just got back from jogging. So I have a shoe that's like an actual jogging shoe. I don't actually jog in my Converse. So, but what's great about it is that when, I'm trying to figure out what shoes to wear, it's like, do I want the black ones or the white ones? That's all you have to decide on.
A lot of choices.
And for the most part, it's, do I want the low tops or do I want the high tops? They're both black, but which one do I want? It's an easy decision. So.
Have you ever reached out to them for a sponsorship?
No,
have you ever tried to partner with them?
I haven't. They're a beast. They're owned by Nike. I think that this one dude from California that's wearing them out while he's in a bass boat probably isn't really their market.
Oh, you never know. I mean, you're synonymous. It's your freaking T on your hat. What Bill Dance's T, the Tennessee hat to Bill Dance, the cowboy hat to Ray Scott. I mean, dude, I honestly think if you got a group of anglers and you just held a footwear, yours would be identifiable right away. Like you are totally. It's wild how you're so synonymous.
And what's funny
that.
Is it wasn't. You look at like a Skeet wearing yellow shoes, or a Boyd wearing red shoes, or let's go a Randy Howell blue shoes. That was never an intention.
Yeah.
That was never something that I looked at. It was just, these are the shoes I wear. It wasn't a marketing thing that was a branding thing that was me. It was just, those are the shoes I wore, so it wasn't intentional.
So. Yeah. Well, but that's what makes it work to me. Like, I mean, if you just, if Zonas showed up in Chucks all of a sudden and said, this is my thing, it just wouldn't make sense.
Oh, man.
Do you think everybody goes through that? Like you said, when you first showed up, you just wore regular shoes like everybody else. Do you think everybody goes through that period where they're conformists, so to speak?
Absolutely.
Ike wore a friggin' vest and glasses for several years, and then all of a sudden became the fire-breathing dragon he is.
And it's you look at when you're doing something new and you show up. You try to, like you said, kind of conform, so, and it can be fishing too. The way you fish is another way of doing it. You go out there and you try to mimic what everyone else is doing because you're trying to fit in. And, when things start to work, it's because you start doing what you're comfortable with. And yeah, that was, I try to conform too. And I don't, I guess I don't anymore. I don't know. Or I just have realized that it's easier to be you than to be them. I don't know.
Do you think that's changed now? Like, do you think that rookies coming in now? I mean, I think the blueprint's kind of in front of them. It's okay to be yourself. Like, I think the world in general is literally themselves a lot more than they used to be. Like, even this conversation we're having 15 years ago, it's a lot more scripted. It's like literally we have no plan. We started this and we said we're going
Yeah.
to talk for about an hour. Do you think the world is a lot more accepting, or has it changed,
No,
or
it
is it still
is
the
more
same?
accepting. Absolutely. Things are completely different now. The fact that, like you said, we're here on a podcast. I mean, you're in Canada, I'm in California, and we're sitting here talking, and I'm looking at you, and I'm looking at your little bobblehead kind of things in the background there. I mean, that was never even a thought back in the day. And I think that people kind of are more individual now than they were before. I absolutely agree with you. Yes.
Yeah. If you let's play a game. If you could design the perfect tournament angler, give me 3 traits that you would make sure that person. You've seen the movie
Yeah.
Weird Science. In Weird
Oh
Science, they
yeah.
designed the perfect girl.
Yeah.
Kelly LeBrock.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Everybody our age
Absolutely.
remembers that movie. It is amazing. But if we had designed the perfect pro angler, what are 3 traits you would make sure they would have?
Absolutely. They have to be good on a microphone, like yourself or like Swindle. Have to. Swindle is unique because he is one of the funniest people to, put his mouth on a microphone. Absolutely. Like, I don't understand how he comes up with some of this stuff or how he can talk that fast. He can think about it, what he wants to say. He can say it, and I can't listen and keep up with him, if that makes sense. He is the most talented fisherman I've ever seen on a microphone. I think that goes a long ways. So being talented, being well spoken, and obviously being funny is what Swindle does. I think that is one trait that would be part of the ultimate fisherman. The other aspect would be their drive on the day-to-day part, being on the water. Being the first one with the ramp, putting in the effort to work really hard. It's freezing cold, it's raining, it's windy, whatever it is, you still get out there. My brother and my cousin and a bunch of my friends that I grew up with were big into cycling, road racing, and they were on. My one buddy went to the Olympics. Johnny, who he was one of the velodrome, like the track guys for cycling. Went to the Olympics. My brother and my cousin were all on the national team, the Olympic national team. Well, these guys would go and they would do rides with guys like Lance Armstrong. And they were on a ride somewhere, and this always kind of stuck with me. They were on a ride somewhere, and it was raining and freezing cold. And these guys were on bikes out riding in the rain, and they were frozen. They come back, they're like, let's call it. They go back in, they're all staying in a house or they're all staying in a hotel, whatever it is. They all go in, guys are changing and getting out of their wet clothes, jumping in the showers, putting on warm clothes. And Lance comes in, changes out of all his wet clothes, puts all dry riding gear, and goes right back on the bike and goes out. Not one other guy in the entire team went and did that. Everyone stayed in and got warm. And that always stuck with me, that the drive of that guy to go do something like that. I mean, think about that. If it's cold, or let's say it's in the summer and it's light, and you're at the St. Lawrence River and it's summer and it's light for 18 hours, 20 hours in the day. There's a lot of guys that go out and practice from 6 or 7 in the morning until 3 or 4 in the afternoon, because that's what the tournament hours are. What you learn before 7, what you learn after 3 or 4 o'clock isn't going to help you on the tournament day. That's absolutely false. You are absolutely going to learn something after those hours. But that's the way some guys think, is that you don't need to be on the water for that long. Well, you absolutely do. Putting in that time and getting out there is another trait for the perfect angler. The other thing, so, being funny, having that drive, I do believe that you have to have some natural ability. Now, I know that, you talk with or have talked with every single one of the best anglers out there right now. You know them. You probably have every one of their numbers in your cell phone. There is natural ability there. There has to be. You can't take a person and just have that drive to go out there and do something and say that they're going to be the best at it. There has to be some sort of natural ability. There has to be. And, that's one question that I've always wanted to ask a guy like, Joe Rogan. I listen to his podcast. I think he's a great, interviewer. I think he asks some really good questions. But he talks to the best people in any of the industries that these people are on. It's a broad topic, or a broad show. He talks to people in the science world. He talks to people that are specialists in UFOs. He talks to government officials. He talks to MMA fighters. Whatever the sport is, whatever it is, he talks to the best in the world. I would love to ask him, do you believe that anyone could do what these guys do by working hard? And I'm guessing, I'm thinking the answer is absolutely not. Not everyone can do it. I think you have to have some sort of natural ability.
I totally agree. I think it's just, and I think it maybe even more so in our sport, where it's like, I think there's other sports, like, for example, and I might even heard this on Rogan, but there's this study where they're talking about like heavyweight boxing. It's been a long time since there's been an American that has been a world-class heavyweight boxer. You know what I mean? Like, there's some like Deontay Wilder who has tried, and and had the belt for a little while, but like the amount of heavyweights that there was in the 70s has drastically dropped. And there's this whole theory, but the reason is because the NFL pays too much, because these same people, and it's the same, like LeBron James, for example, could be a great tight end if he chose to be. You know what I mean? Like, athletically that way, there's certain gifts that those folks have, but I think like in fishing, it's not athletically. It's just, there's a sense, there's a connection, which is the greatest thing about the sport. I think, like, I always tell the story about how often I followed different anglers on the water, and I watch how you guys are doing everything that supposedly in a magazine you're supposed to do. And then all of a sudden you're just like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And it works. You know what I mean? Like, every cast is to the right, but this one's to the left. Why'd you do that?
Yeah.
You just did. Why'd you leave that area? You just did.
Something
it's an instinct.
You just thought that it was the right thing to do, and you did it, and it worked. Yeah, absolutely.
On the water, if you had to break it down percentage-wise, what % of your decisions on the water are planned versus instinct reacting to the moment?
I would say it was a direct correlation with the tournaments that I do well in, or the ones that it was instinctual versus planned. Anytime you have a set plan, or the ones that you don't do well in the tournament. The tournaments that I go into saying that this is going to be a good one, like I have a chance at winning this tournament, are my worst finishes. And I think you get too too narrow-minded, I think, when it's like that. Yeah, you get locked in and they change and you can't, I believe. I think the best ones are those ones where you go out there and go, hey, I'm going to start here. Fishing sucks. And you get there and you don't get a bite, and you're like, man, well, what's kind of funny is I have pulled the trolling motor. I go, I need to go. And I've pulled the trolling motor so many times, not knowing where I was going. You just know that it's not right there, It has to be somewhere else. And you just start driving and you go, let's go over here. And halfway there, you go, hey, that looks good. And you hook it over and you catch one. You go, that was weird. I was doing something different. You know what? There was something over here. There you're over there. Drop the trolling motor. Oh, there's another one. Those are the best tournaments that it happens while you're doing it. I think you get too, like you said, locked into what you were doing. So the practices where you have a tougher time out there is usually where you have the better tournaments. So if it was down to an actual percentage, I couldn't give it a solid percentage, but the ones where you act on the fly are definitely better.
I think that's why momentum, people say momentum, but I think momentum's got a lot more to it's momentum, but it's also confidence in your decisions. Like that's why you see anglers go on streaks where it's like that dude is unstoppable this year but because they made that turn and said, this is weird and caught him and ended up doing really well in that tournament. But that also gave them the balls to make that turn in the next tournament and to believe what the instinct was telling
them. So tell me this, how many times have you been on the water, whether it was practicing for a tournament or just fun fishing or whatever, and you had an idea of something and it wasn't necessarily a bait on the deck. It was something that you pulled out a rod, you maybe put line on, you put that bait on, and you stood up and you caught one on your first cast. Have you done that ever?
Lots. I mean, my biggest mistake, and I'm a tournament MC. That's how good of a tournament angler I am. So remember, you don't want to take, but I look at it when I'm shooting shows. Whenever I have that voice that is telling me something, and I've gotten better at it now. I think I'm a lot better at it. But forever, I'd be like, yeah, but we're trying to make a jerkbait show. Yeah. I shouldn't just throw a spinnerbait all of a sudden. Where now, I try to answer that voice as soon as possible because it freaking, I don't know where the voice is coming from, but it when you listen to it, it works. What's
interesting to me is that I've had it happen a bunch of times where you have that feeling, whether it's bait, whether it's doing something a little bit different, technique wise or structure wise, whatever it is, and something happens instantly. I mean, literally, you tie on a different bait, something looks right, you throw out first cast, you catch one, and never get another bite again doing that. That has happened to me a lot. But the very first one, you go, oh, okay, I'm on it now. And 2 hours later, you haven't had another bite. So that's the part that's weird to me, is that if you could harness that thought more often, then, I think we'd all be better anglers for sure.
Where does that voice come from, do you think?
I
mean, if you did,
I don't know. It's just that instinctual, that natural something that made you think that this was right, even though it wasn't. I mean, shoot, and we're wrong a lot. I remember the first time I saw an Alabama rig was my buddy Jonathan Newton. He lives over in Alabama, and we were all on the National Guard team together in FLW. And I left my boat at his house a couple times, and we would hang out, between tournaments. And I drive to his house, and I walk into his living room, and there's a rod there with an Alabama rig on it. And this is 8 months, a year before Paul Elias, won that fall tournament. I mean, had over 100 pounds in the fall at Gunnersville. No one had ever heard of the Alabama rig prior to that. Well, 8 months before that, I saw one, and I go, Jonathan, what is that thing? He goes, oh, they call that the Alabama rig. And I go, does it work? He goes, yeah, I think so. I mean, it works good on schooling fish. This is exactly what he told me. And he goes, you want one? And I go, it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. No, I don't want one. Fast forward to 8 months later, I would have paid $200 for that stupid Alabama rig in that one tournament because Paul Elias was catching 30 pounds a day, and no one else was, no one else outside of the A rig was even close to competing with him. In fact, Jay Yellis made the cut on the final day in that tournament and he was throwing a single swim bait, and he had a milk run that he was running. It was a bay, it was something. And I asked him after the tournament, he made the final day, and he told me that he finished in the top 5 in the tournament, but he told me with a single swim bait, he was catching 7 or 8 keepers a day. Same milk run, everything. He gets one Alabama rig for the final day. He goes out and catches 50. He had, he was catching 20 pounds a day leading up to that. He has almost 30 pounds on the final day. And he goes, Brent, I caught at least 50 keepers on that final day. He goes, I was catching 8 a day on a single swim bait. I tied this thing on and I went out and I caught 50. Doing the exact same thing, same milk run. I started in the same place. I ran here second, the same place. He goes, I caught 50 with that one bait alone.
Gosh. And then people were meeting each other in parking lots at 3 a.m. for handmade. Like, it was ridiculous. The first time I saw it, I mean, you don't have to be embarrassed, because the first time I saw it was maybe around the same time frame, and it was on Skeet's boat, actually. And it was one of the postseason. I think it was the year before, because a year later, this bait comes out and people are going nuts. But I remember, so it was one of the postseason events at Bass, and the 12 that were fishing for Angler of the Year, there was this train station where they would rig all their rods and stuff. So Skeet's the first one in there, and I'm the only person, me, James Overstreet, and Skeet Reese. And Skeet has that thing hanging off the side of his boat. And I'm like, start joking. Like, I literally thought it was like, when people would tie on something stupid just to be like, oh, yeah, you're catching them on that big spoon, are you? Well, so I'm like, what's this? And making kind of a joke about it. And I remember Overstreet, he goes, that's some West Coast bullshit.
I could see him saying that for sure. Oh, man.
And then, so Skeet kind of laughed about it or whatever, and we laughed. And then I go to take a picture of it to do a video with for Bassmaster.com. And Skeet goes, whoa, no, don't take a picture of this. And I was like, you're really throwing that? And I mean, I thought the same thing. I'm like, this freaking chandelier. Yeah. Who's gonna?
What's funny
is I know.
I remember going. That was the end of the season. That was in the fall. It was in a FLW series tournament. That's where they had their fall series tournament. Yeah. And Paul Elias won that. And I remember talking with Rob Newell that off season, and he's like, what's going to happen this next year with the A rig? And I go, every single tournament will be won on that rig. Every single tournament. And we go to the first event, and I'm fishing down the bank, and I'm coming this way, and another boat's coming this way, a local guy, aluminum boat, 2 guys out fishing. And the guy in the back seat, all the rods are on the side of the seat here. And I look, and he's got one rod with an Alabama rig, reeled to the tip, and there's a jig with a chunk on it. There's a shaky head with a trick worm on it. There is actually one swim bait on it. I can't remember what the other bait was on, a Texas rig. It was everything. It was not swim baits. It was the whole gamut. I mean, there might have been a crankbait on there. I don't really know. But the fact that here's this Alabama rig, the local guy's got it on there with every bait you could think of on the one rig. Hey, they're biting that trick worm today on that Alabama rig, or whatever it was. I died laughing seeing that thing. Reeled to the tip back there. He wasn't throwing it, but he had it on because that's what they're catching them on. So I loved it.
It's a great, I mean, it's a crazy, do you believe, I mean, will we see baits like that? Like, I mean, the chatterbait had its moment like that. I remember way back when, the Porco, the different, you know what I mean? Like the Sluggo first came out. Like, I remember that being like, wow, there's this bait that does these things. And have all those, it's just been scratched, or will there be a bait that comes out in the future that does that?
Absolutely.
Sport?
I mean, we've seen it every 2 or 3 years, something new comes out. Hey, the current bait that's running the industry right now is forward-facing sonar. It is. That's just the way it is. Yeah. That's the new thing right now. every year we see it, something new is going to come down the pipe. It might be another 2 years from now. It might be next year. I don't know, but we absolutely will. And it's just that part of progression. When people come out, we've got some smart people out there. When they come out with something new, it's a trend and it goes, and it's the best way to catch fish. And we absolutely will see something. I don't know what it is. I hope I'm the one that comes up with it. But it absolutely will be there.
Do you think fish will ever adjust to forward-facing sonar like they did the Alabama
I think they have
rig?
to. Something will change. That maybe it's now going to be a technology side and not necessarily a bait side. Maybe that's going to be the future of fishing, where different ways of finding fish, and then it's up to you on how to catch them. I don't know, but there are going to be new developments in the industry, whether it's bait or technology, sonar, or something. I believe that. Like I said, we've seen it. I've been involved in the fishing industry for over 20 years, and I've seen it multiple times. Whether it was the Sluggo, the Senko, the rattle trap, the chatterbait, the A-rig, we've all seen it. And it's if you don't have it, you're not catching them. And then pretty soon they don't really bite it as good. So pretty soon forward facing is going to be a little bit tougher. I don't know whether it's going to be a bait thing next or it's going to be a new technology. Maybe Garmin will come out with a new way to find them. I'm not sure. There's always something out there that will change the industry.
I think we underestimate fish too. And it's not just technology or baits. I live on the Great Lakes. I've seen them adjusted. Gobies was supposed to destroy the Great Lakes. It actually made it better in a lot of ways. Zebra mussels, the same thing. Was supposed to. Fishing is never going to be. And the fish, you've done this for 20 years. They've done this for a lot longer. And I just think that it's the same doom and gloom where people want to say, oh, the Alabama rig was going to destroy everything. Well, in retrospect, it wouldn't have, never would have. It just would have been a situational thing.
Absolutely.
And
the
fish adapt.
They do. Shoot, think about it. They're out there just trying to survive. That's all they're doing. They're just trying to survive. Yeah. And they're going to learn how to survive pretty quick. So if it means doing something they don't normally do, or they get, they start hearing the pinging from the, forward-facing stuff, I don't know. But believe me, they're trying to survive. And the ones that are smart, it's natural selection. The ones that are smart are going to live, and they're going to be smart from here on out.
It's wild. Before we started recording, I was telling you about all the underwater footage I've been shooting and how obsessed with that I am. But that has literally made me realize that fish, I think about fish so different now. I literally think of fish like it's a scene in The Walking Dead. That's how they react. You have two goals every day. They might not have those goals mentally stuck in their head because it doesn't work that way, but it's, I want to eat and I want to not get eaten. So all the things that we thought, I always thought about these, you grew up watching these crushing underwater eats and stuff like that. You see it in commercials and you just think, or when you see a topwater eat, you're just like, it's so aggressive. But fish underwater try to be the least aggressive as possible. They're only aggressive when they have to be. If you see them eat, and it's cool. If you see them eat a shad, they just do that big open mouth and the thing folds and goes in their mouth. If you see them eat a perch, it's totally different, where they try to hammer that thing is because they don't want to get stuck. It all makes sense, but they're focused on two things. And
have you seen what's so you were saying it's freezing cold and you're climbing in the St. Lawrence River. Have you seen a massive school of fish yet? Whether it's St. Lawrence River or anywhere, smallmouth, I'm assuming, are probably the bigger schools. But have you seen a massive school of fish while you're down there?
No. I've seen big schools of dozens, but I also don't. I think where the massive schools are, I'm not doing it because I try to stay somewhat shallower because you've got more light. I'm shooting underwater. If you're just down there to look at them, I mean, I know we've like when you see those things on your, like what everybody used to call lasagna on their graph. Those are schools like
Yeah,
just of massive schools, but most of the schools I've seen
gotcha.
are smaller, just
Yeah,
because
yeah,
of
I
where
gotcha.
I'm doing it. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, it's a
That's
weird
so
addiction of
awesome.
mine. But I love it. Like my wife will tell me, you need to go away, you need to go swimming, because like I just come back much more zen, and it's a
I
freaking
love it.
cool
I love it.
play. You know what I mean? Like to swim with a fish. It's just uh,
You get to
to me,
swim
it's
with
just
fish and
wild.
you're cold
It's
plunging at the same time. I like it.
yeah. Oh, dude, I cold plunge too much. I mean, I've told this story to a few people. I'll tell you. So here, I'm going to give a tip to men watching this show all around the world. This is something that we all needed to learn, and I had to learn in a very bad way. So I was swimming in like 50 something degree, with like low 50s for
Oh
like
gosh.
6-7 hours. Like, I mean, I literally just get out, change a battery on my camera, and go back. So I'm doing this all day, and then I get into my hotel room, and I'm sausaging my ass out of my wetsuit. I mean, it's not a nice visual for anybody, but I'm freaking frozen. And when a man is cold,
Yep.
things shrink.
Oh yeah.
And I'm in the shower. Like everybody's been cold in the shower, and they're trying to warm up. I'm trying to warm up in the shower, and I can't believe I'm going to tell this story. So I'm showering. I just all I did is just pull my nutsack, just a tiny little, like just give it a little, just a little pull. Like dude, I dropped like I was shot. Like and I'm down there, and you know when you like hit your head on something, your first thing is to like, am I bleeding? So I literally thought I ripped my ball sack. So the moral of the story is, if you get really cold, let your body do its job. It'll all fall back in place. Don't try to
touch your
speed
balls
up
until they warm
nature.
up a little bit. Okay, gotcha. Hold on. Let me put it in my notes. Just a second.
It's very, very important. I didn't even think about it. You know, I'm showering, and I mean, it wasn't aggressive at all. But it felt like I literally laid in the fetal position all alone in this hotel in the fetal position. Like, and I thought I've ripped my ball sack, but thankfully it was just I still can't believe why it hurt so much, but it freaking
Oh
hurt.
man, that's funny.
Won't learn that on the
Yeah,
Joe Rogan
seriously.
podcast. Since you're a big Rogan fan, do you believe
You
in
know,
aliens?
I want to. Man, there's so much out there we don't know. I would be. I have a hard time believing that we're all that there is in this, universe and beyond. There's no way. It's just we're so small, we're so minor in the, the vastness out there. I mean, they're talking about black holes on the Rogan show the other day, and that the biggest black hole that they've taken photos of was like, I don't even know how many million light years away. And you're like, there's so much out there. There's no way that we are all that's here. Now, I do believe that a lot of stuff that we see is something government related, top secret, that's not out there. I know that the SR-71, when that became public, they already had the stealth bomber in the works before the SR-71 was actually public. So, there's stuff out there right now that our government, other governments have, that is so top secret that I'm sure some of that stuff is being, they're testing it out there, and that's what people are believing is UFOs. So I don't necessarily think that anything that's flying around out there that we don't know what it is automatically means it's an alien from another, another planet. I do believe there's stuff out there that, there's so much we don't know. There's so much we don't know about our own planet. I mean, just think about the amount of water that's out there and what is being discovered still today, or in rainforest today. We don't know everything. There's a lot out there. So I am open to it, but I'm not going to say no, it's absolutely false.
Have
I
you ever
haven't.
seen
I want to
anything?
so bad. My brother saw one just recently. Yeah, my
Come
brother
on,
saw
really?
something that was really strange, light sitting out there, whatever, and then all of a sudden just zipped and gone, and I've talked to people that have seen, something that was unexplained, and man, I want to see something so bad.
What would you do? I mean, here's the weird thing. There's so many people with cameras now. Like, you would think it should be, like, I get how this stuff happened in the 70s and 80s, but now everybody's got a camera. Even the 90s. I mean, people had cameras, but they were really bad. And now you've got, like, the zoom on cameras is incredible, but no, I mean, there has to be more. Yeah. There's gotta. I mean, I think I don't want to see it though. I am different. I'm good to live in my little world. My problem is my imagination is way too vivid. Like I back to my snorkeling stuff, dude. So I swim the St. Lawrence River a lot, which is the best. And every once in a while, there's these, on Shark Week or whatever, somebody will do a series where there's like, is there sharks in the St. Lawrence River? There's this bull shark that went up there. Dude, if I go down there and start thinking about that crap, and every single time I'm swimming, like, at some point the zipper on my wetsuit will like float around in my peripheral, and I will just like there's no way I could do it in California, like where there's sharks, and I could not do it in the ocean. Dude, freshwater only.
So I did some lobster diving, free diving, and you do it at night, and it's November. What's that?
In Florida?
No, in California.
In Florida or in California?
And
oh, wow.
This was years ago. So the season is right now, I think. It's in that, October, November, December. I don't remember the exact season, but it was around this time of year. This is probably 10 years ago. And what was weird is it was one of those really weird El Nino years where we had this crazy warm water flow coming up from Mexico. So the water was still 70 degrees in November off the coast for us, which is nuts. And there's these crazy reports of schools of hammerheads and, all this crazy stuff that we don't normally see, off the California coast and in Southern California. And I'm down there with a flashlight and I'm looking for these lobster. And I had this feeling that something was watching me, right? And so there's rock on one side, and I'm in, so I have bottom below me, and there's like this rock face on one side, and it's open ocean over here on the other side. And I'm doing this, and I just go like this, and I just look out with a flashlight, and there's a giant calico just staring at me. So I had that feeling, when people say that they know when someone's looking at them, they look over and there's something staring at them. It was like a 10-pound calico bass, which is a big calico. And he was just staring at me. Yeah. He had a bead on me for sure. Thank goodness it wasn't a giant hammerhead or something, but it was that weird feeling where I just felt like something was watching me. It was a calico.
It was a calico. I don't know how you swam there, dude. I mean, the few times that I've fished calicos and stuff at San Clemente, and dude, like, I see all these people out in their paddle boards, and I'm just like, there's freaking great whites here. You guys are out of control. Like, it's Casey Shedd from NAFCO is a big surfer, and I'm like, you're nuts. Like, you are nuts. You're from a successful family. You do not want to get eaten by a damn shark.
They're out there, especially where you were in Clemente. There's a lot of great whites out there. It's scary. Like, I will not go swimming out there. There's no way.
Me and Zona, one night, we went out there on a fishing trip years ago with Dave Pfeiffer, and we're out there, and he is like an open, whatever it is, I forget what kind of boat. It's a very famous saltwater boat, but like it's there's no top or anything on it. It's an open fishing boat. I'm going to get ridiculed from saltwater people, but so we're going to go all the way out there. We're going to stay for the night, and literally me and Zona slept at the front of the boat in 2 different sleeping bags. And dude, I hardly slept a wink because you're like there and it's pitch black and you're just hearing things surface and noises, and you're like, that's not a calico. Like, there's just
I'm with you.
Legit.
It's monsters. Very strange being out there in the dark. And I've been there. I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's really weird.
Wild. What about Sasquatch? You believe in
No, I
that?
mean, I want to. Bigfoot, why not? Come on. I, like you're saying with, UFOs and cell phones, I believe that there would be more out there if there was a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. I mean, I think that one's a little hard to believe. I do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's parts of the world though that it could exist and we wouldn't know. But I just think like at some point like everything's been exposed. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, there's cameras everywhere in the world, and it. I don't know. I don't want to run into any of it. I'll be honest. I mean, which means that I'll probably run into it. It's never the guy like you that's like, I want to see a UFO. But it. What's the weirdest thing you've seen traveling over the years? I mean, you must have run into some strange cats.
Having someone call my hotel room, one of those Motel 6s where your doorway opens up to like the pool and you can look across to the other doorways here, and Motel 6, and I walk into my hotel room and the phone instantly rings and I pick it up and it's a pimp trying to solicit, asking if I wanted, any kind of sexual favors kind of a thing. That was strange. That was my very first year on tour. I got to experience that.
What did you say? Why, yes, please. I was thinking more order a pizza, but this is so much better.
No, that was I couldn't get off the phone fast enough. It was creepy. Just the fact that he's across the way. He walks into the room. He knows what room to dial on the phone, and if I say yes, he sends someone over. That's all I could think. I don't know. I didn't want to find out.
Yeah.
But that was my very first year on tour. You see weird things out there driving on the road where I left Lake Okeechobee, an FLW event, and I was driving somewhere to leave my boat and truck and fly home. And I left at about 4 a.m. Well, when you're out there at Okeechobee, there's no interstate right there. You have to drive an hour before you hit the 74, whatever that runs north and south in Florida. I'm driving on a 2-lane road, and all of a sudden these headlights come flying up behind me to where now I can't even see the headlights. They're so close to the lower unit on my boat, but I see the light bar on the top for, that it was a police or highway patrol. And, I don't think I was speeding. So I'm looking at my speedometer. I'm looking at my side mirror. Like I said, I can't even see his headlights. He's that close to the back of the boat. And I tell myself, well, go 45 or 50, because if it's 40-ish, if I'm going 45, I'm not going to, get pulled over. If it's 50, 55, I'm going under, we're fine. And I'm looking at my side mirror. I'm looking at my speed, looking at my side mirror, and I look forward, and there's a ladder in the lane. Okay, one of those ladders that fell off a work truck. It's not open like this. It's folded up, but laying in my lane and partially over the double yellow line. Now, this is a 2-lane road, no shoulder, going to fields on either side. And I look up, I can't go right. If I go right, I'm off the shoulder. So I crank it left and I straddle the ladder with the truck. Well, the trailer clips the ladder. So I crank it this way and it goes bam. And I look, and the cop is swerving like this, and there's sparks like 4th of July shooting out from underneath his car. It's stuck under the squad car. So he center punched the ladder because he couldn't see it because he's so close to my lower unit. He's swerving like this and then cranks it and goes flying off the road, just bouncing in the field off on the side of the road. And I just kept right on driving.
What, you piece of shit?
There was literally, the asphalt ended like this, and there was grass that went down to a field. I couldn't pull over. So I didn't know what to do. But I'm not joking. The ladder stuck underneath the squad car. Like he just center punched it. and just started like swerving all over the place. So
Wow.
that was probably year 2 or 3 fishing. So, I mean, a lot of stuff happened those first couple of years that I was out there. Now it's just kind of like run of the mill, whatever happens out there. But those definitely, those two things definitely stand out for sure.
All I'm thinking about is somebody's going to be listening to
It's
this.
like, there he is.
Their dad.
That's him.
Their dad was a cop years ago, and he had this story. You're not going to believe that son of a bitch didn't even pull over.
Hey, I honestly would have, but there was literally, I'm talking, there's the double yellow line in the middle, and there's my lane, and then there's that white lane, on the side of the road that ends like, hey, this is the double yellow to the white lane. And I mean, like, the white lane was here, and then right there was grass that went like that. Like, there was no shoulder whatsoever. So if I pulled over, I'd been blocking the whole lane, but I think he was probably all right.
Yeah, I'm sure he was fine.
I just can't. I'm just curious how he explained that to, HQ. Yeah, I was driving. I hit a ladder.
Well, this guy in a bass boat threw a ladder at me.
Oh man!
Some kid from California.
Oh man!
Did you ever you hear older? I mean, Skeet's gonna hate that I called him an older pro, but you hear older West Coast guys. Sorry, Skeet, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about somebody else. But you hear sometimes people saying, like, being a West Coast guy, there was some hate towards me. But you came along after that, right? Like, you've never had to put up with that.
Wait, say that again? Hate towards being from California?
Like, being a West Coast dude, when you come out East, like, there is some stories where people are like, we don't like your type around here.
I mean, it's nothing major. I mean, I've had a few things where, people say, oh, you're one of those California liberals. That's the one I get all the time. So that's the one thing I get. No, I think that the people I run into are, bass fishermen. I think that when you're in that bass fishing community, everyone's kind of part of that community, So I haven't run into anything where I felt uncomfortable being from California.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, I hope that you win a bunch of tournaments this year and you see a friggin' UFO. I mean, if I can will it out in the world.
One of those better happen this year. I honestly, at this point, probably don't care which one. I want one of those to absolutely happen this year.
Which is more likely?
Oh man, actually, I haven't won one in a while, so maybe actually probably the UFO is more likely at this point. Shoot, I don't know.
Does that mess with your head? Like,
that I haven't seen the UFO? No, it doesn't mess with my head at all.
No. I think it does a little bit. We can rewind the tape. You really want to see one. No, dude, I remember being with Van Dam, and after he won Toledo Bend, when everybody said, oh, he'll never win again. And, he went through that 5-year stretch. And I remember him. So it was just a weird thing. His roommates had left. I was staying for the night. He had just won for the first time in 5 years. I've known him for a long time. So he says, come on over. We're going to cook giant steaks and we're going to have some drinks. I reach in the cabinet to make drinks, and there's 2 cups that say Windat they were from, I guess, the New Orleans Saints when they won the Super Bowl. So it's just perfect. So we got hammered on in these big tumblers that said Windat. And I remember KVD turned to me after, and it was just, like when you're hanging out with a friend, you can have moments of silence. Like, it's a real friend where you just don't feel like you have to be talking. And it's kind of a quiet moment, and he's got his head down, and he looks at me, he's like, man, this shit ain't easy, Mercer. And I remember thinking, if Kevin Van Dam thinks it's not easy, I mean, it's a ridiculously hard sport that you've chosen to be part of.
It is very difficult, and I think the learning curve is so much faster now than it was back in the day. So the anglers right now are way better than they were, 10 years ago, and they're, even way better, than they were 20 years ago. So it is harder and harder, I believe, to win every year. Absolutely, I'd like to win again, but you never know when it's going to happen, and I think that I'm sure that, kind of what we talked about before about the mental side of it in making the decisions, making the right decisions, or not even thinking about the decision, just trusting your instinct plays a big role in it. And, getting back into that mental state is when that win will happen. And, hopefully it'll happen soon. It's been a while. I think the last one, a major that I won was the TTPC back in 15. I won a cup event since then, but that's a small, there's not many, there's only 24 anglers in that, cup. So it was a small event, but to win a full field regular season or championship tournament, man, I would like to have it happen. I've had some close calls over the last 5-8 years, but to do it, have a legit full field tournament win right now would be a big deal. And, I think at this point, I'm not worried about my ability of catching fish. It's that mental side right now that's going to take some change or following those instincts to make it happen. So, if
it's going to happen,
you never know when it is, and there's nothing you can do or say to make it happen. It's just going to happen or it's not. So
it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I have faith. A lot of people have won right after they've been on this podcast.
I'm ready.
I mean, I don't know. It really, a lot of people haven't won, but a bunch have. Justin Hamner won the Classic after being on here.
Well, dude, why didn't you have me on in January? 100%. I got to wait a couple months for it to happen now. Come on.
Come on back. You're welcome back. I think we're honestly just scratching the surface. I mean, truth be told, you can fast forward through the first 45 minutes of this podcast and get right back to the bizarre stuff. That's where this show really starts. Just promise me if you do see a UFO that this will be the first podcast that you come on to talk about it.
And not only that, but I'm going to record it. So I will send you the footage and we'll play it on your show too. How's that?
Yeah, and then you won't care. That'll be wonderful. I can't wait. I mean, thank you. Thank you for that gift. No, dude, you've always been a guy that I love to hang with. The best thing about you and our relationship is, I mean, we saw each other a month ago at the Hall of Fame or whatever. And like, I honestly, there's some people who you run into them and they pull well, haven't I heard from you lately? Me and you, literally, it's like we saw each other a day before.
It's one of those things where, we texted kind of here and there, and it was fun to finally see you. I haven't seen you in a really long time, and man, it was great catching up, and I really appreciate you having me on the show. And I mean, we're talking multiple years before we hung out a bunch, and so it's been way too long. And I appreciated the time at the Hall of Fame and getting to see you and hang out, and then now talk about UFOs. I mean, what could be better?
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's all good. But I mean, there was a lot that happened in those few years that we were running in different circles. Let's just say.
True.
Now forward-facing soldiers around and nobody cares. Like now it's like MLF bass. We all get along. Now everybody hates rookies.
I know. There's bigger fish to fry, I guess, right now.
It's so dumb. It's so. I mean, I've said that sadly, I've always said that since the split happened. I'm like, if one of us gets the wrong call about one of us, nobody's going to give a crap what league we fished. And sadly, a bunch of us got that call with Aaron a few years ago. And who cares where people fish and how they do it? I wish we would just all get along.
I agree. Absolutely. It's been a weird couple of years, and the worst part about it is not seeing, the people that, like yourself, that, we would see at every tournament and talk to on stage. And, that's the worst part about it is not seeing people that you really value in the industry. And that makes it tough. So.
Yeah. It's funny too, because I always say to people, like, the weird thing isn't like, I mean, it's great to talk to you on stage, but I don't miss, you know what I mean? Like I mean, you're going to get introduced by somebody, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. Lurch does a great job. But what you miss is like leaning up against your boat and having stupid
Yeah.
conversations in a parking lot. Like, I think honestly, that's the true. I mean, I don't know. I mean, one day when I'm not doing this anymore,
Yeah.
that's what I'll miss the most, just hanging out with good people, because that's what this industry is full of, a lot of good
No,
people.
I'm with you 100%.
There are some suckers, but a lot of good people.
I think that list is getting bigger by the day, which is unfortunate.
We'll talk
Hey,
about that next
I
time.
gotta say something
You're on
right
the
now.
podcast.
Kelly's right here. She's been quiet, and you said that. She just starts busting up laughing over there in the kitchen.
Studio audience reaction. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And hi, Kelly.
She says hi. You made her day, by the way.
Say things like that on a podcast. Dude, you're an awesome dude, and
thank you. I appreciate you having me on here, and I appreciate catching up. That means a lot, really does. And I appreciate your friendship and everything we've been through, and it's great to reconnect. Absolutely.
I told you that conversation went a lot of different directions, and clearly I was not lying one bit. Thank you very much, Brent Ehrler. That was a fun chat. I hope you guys enjoyed it, because I plan on having that dude on the show a bunch more in the future. A great dude, a great conversation, and I hope you guys have a great week. Don't forget, it's Reaper season. Enter the Reaper contest, Avco Reaper. There will be a link down below in the comments and in the description. Click on that, enter the contest. Make sure to like this video. Add Avco Reaper in your comments. Let's blow up the comments once again here this week, because that's a nice thing to do. I mean, it keep the grow going, and I appreciate it. And while we're at it, be nice, people. Go out in the world and hold the door open for somebody this week. Let somebody through in traffic. Just spread the kindness, because I know you guys got it in you, and you prove it each and every week. Have a great week. Enjoy being. And as always, Bob Cobb, take it away.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because Bob Cobb of the Bassmasters told you to. You hear?